morning. Welcome to our latest In Conversation series. I'm Matt Driscoll, editor of Asian Aviation Magazine and AsianAviation.com. Today we're pleased to have Mr. Gary Dolski. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Metrojet in Hong Kong. It's one of the top business jet managers and charter operators. He's with us today to talk about business aviation and where it stands in these difficult times. Gary, welcome to In Conversation.
Well, great, Matt. An absolute pleasure to meet with you and super to be here and ready to start.
Let's address the elephant in the room. COVID-19 pandemic has decimated the aviation industry across every sector. IATA's on the commercial sector. IATA's talking about more than $300 billion in losses. How is it at Metrojet? First of all, tell us a little bit about Metrojet. Give us a 50-cent tour of what you do and how long you've been there. I know you've been there probably longer than anyone else in the business aviation industry, but tell us what's going on right now. Give us a snapshot of your organization and sort of what you're doing to keep things going at this time.
Okay, absolutely. So Metrojet is part of the Kadoorie Group. We've been around for 22 years. We're the longest running aircraft management and charter and maintenance company in the region in Southeast Asia and mainland China, Hong Kong region. As part of the Kadoorie family, we have a sister company, Heli Services, that also takes care of a lot of the helicopter lifting in the area. Our focus is regional. Our home base is Hong Kong. We are building a massive hangar facility for parking and maintenance in the Philippines right now in Clark. And it's very, very interesting times. This virus has come in. It's hit everyone hard. The good news is it's hit everyone basically at the same time. Flying is basically ground to a halt for everyone in the region. Every day you wake up and there's different changes, where you can fly, where you can't fly. The government requirements on every country is different. So what all of us have had to do is become very good at doing our juggling acts. And if you can finally fly somewhere, you hope as hell that you can get out, because if you have an AOG somewhere, you may get stuck, and that'll cause a whole bunch of other issues. So on the flying side, for all of our clients, it's a big opportunity for them, and it's a big opportunity for us. But every cloud has a silver lining. For us, our maintenance business has actually improved during this pandemic right now, because as aircraft are parked, and if you take a look in Hong Kong, it's a pretty big parking lot right now, these aircraft need maintenance. And so we have a great maintenance facility here in Hong Kong. So not only are we doing our own fleet, but we're talking to other customers to bring their aircraft in, because if they're going to be parked for a while, might as well get some maintenance done.
We had spoken previously. We did a story that I'd planned to put in the magazine, but we ended up putting it online about charter prices going up, some deliveries for business aircraft being delayed. And again, I mentioned earlier before we started the show that people were talking anywhere from 12.5% to 50% deliveries were down. And some OEMs are pausing operations, suspending production in many cases, furloughing people while they wait to see what happens with the virus. Is that still the case? Where are we with, say, the charter business? You alluded to a little bit just now. Where do we stand with that?
So inquiries are significantly up, but the ones that are actually ending up to having a signed contract, I would say you're looking at maybe a 10% number of you're getting 10 inquiries, and you may be able to get one charter flight through that. And a lot of the charter flight requests now are in anticipation of what's going to be happening in 2 or 3 and 4 months down the road. So there's a lot of inquiry, a lot of interest, and a lot of people are shopping around to see what is the best deals that they can get, which is understandable given these situations. And the big, I guess, elephant in the room, as you said earlier, is what you book today, can you actually fly there tomorrow? So there's a lot of changes in terms of that. You have to feel for the OEMs right now in terms of the manufacturers and their lines. I think what we're going to see through this is a fair number of whitetails that are going to be sitting on the ramp now. We're going to see some issues with people being able to make delivery dates. We're going to see issues with people to be able to make some payments on the aircraft. We're going to see prices of not only the new aircraft, but the pre-owned market also going on a downward curve right now, and that's understandable. So I think if those high net worth individuals that are looking at buying, it's a great time to buy and not so great of a time to sell right now.
Well, you were leading right into my next question. You manage aircraft for other owners, and I was going to ask you, are they looking to sell or sit tight, or is it a matter of where they sit financially? And a lot of high net worth individuals, for example, might be in the resource sector, oil and gas, which is cratered.
Yes,
You couldn't give away a barrel of oil yesterday or the day
that's right.
before.
You have to pay to get rid of it. You're right.
You had to pay to get rid of it. So are those kinds of owners, are they looking, are those the ones that are distressed and they're looking to sell? And also I wanted to ask about corporate owners, the huge corporations that where a CEO is having 3 and 4 and 5 meetings in a single day in several different locations. Are they going to hang on to their aircraft?
Yeah, okay. So if we take a look, and I'll look at ourselves as Metrojet and our managed clientele, and then also take a look maybe at a bit of a broader region. But we're quite fortunate on our end that I would suggest that our clientele are at the pinnacle of the high net worth individuals. And not that anyone is really recession proof, but when you're taking a look at the top 0.001%, they can ride through the storms. And so most of them, I would suggest, are not in a distressed way. They will take a look at this time is to see is now a good time to do an upgrade on their fleet. So for our clientele, I would suggest that we're pretty busy taking a look for some of them if they want to get a different asset and move up. Generally speaking, and again, depending on the market, if you look at parts of, best example I'll give you is if you look at the U.S. market. On the East Coast, there tends to be more high net worth individuals that treat a corporate jet as their own living room and they don't like chartering it out. Whereas if you move more on the West Coast, you'll get a lot of the people on that side that actually need to charter to help sustain their aircraft. These are the people that are getting distressed right now, and these are the people that they're going to see the value of their aircraft that they may have spent $50 million for and had it on their books that now may be only worth $35 million. So there will be opportunities for those to look at those that can withstand and hold. They'll have to do that, but it's going to take a couple of years, in my view, before we can start seeing an uptick on that. There's going to be some losers in the market. There's definitely going to be some winners in the market. A lot of our clientele here are looking at now's a good time to buy things. And it's not only on the aircraft side, but it's on the business side. So we've had some of our customers that have the cash and the wherewithal right now are out on more buying sprees than selling sprees.
Okay. Quick question. Business aviation, a lot of people, we saw the owner of an American football team use his personal plane on sort of a emergency mission to bring PPE equipment from China to the U.S. Are there other examples of business aviation operators doing that same sort of thing? And
yeah, it's actually I think in any natural disaster, it actually brings the best out of people. And so, our high net worth individual clients, when this started, they were actually, as we're trying to buy masks and provide masks and hand sanitizer and give to our staff, our families, our business partners, our clients, and even our competition, equally our customers were doing the same thing to us, saying, do you have enough things? They've asked us if they have an empty leg and they're flying somewhere, are there boxes of masks that we can move for you? There's been very generous offers for the humanitarian side to move people, right? So there's the whole repatriation home. People have made their aircraft available for that. And this isn't only the owners, but it's been some of the charter people. You've heard of the Vista Jets of the world, the Qatar executives of the world are offering significant discounts for empty leg flights. And so you're actually seeing a pretty good coalition of people saying, how can we help you? And it's been very good across the industry. And that's not only in Asia, but in the U.S., I'm sure you're seeing it in everywhere else. It's brought everyone together.
I want to go back to what you talked about earlier about, it might be a good time to pick up a new piece of equipment. How well, when these are long-term contracts, long-term deals that are drawn out, take months to negotiate. There's a lot of money involved. How well is the industry covered with things like material adverse effect clauses or force majeure? Would something like COVID-19 be covered in a contract?
Yeah. So In a past life, I worked with one of the OEMs and on the selling side of the aircraft. You do have force majeure clauses in your contract. I'm going back a few years. We never had pandemics or epidemics covered, so I'm sure you're going to see in the future these being very specifically covered. What will happen, though, is people will take a look at the duration of what is actually sitting in a force majeure clause, where you can look at some of them, they may only be 6 months. This thing's going to last longer than 6 months. And so you can actually see, I could foresee some instances where somebody that's bought a $75 million asset, after 6 months, they say, I'm no longer contractually obliged to take that aircraft, and they won't take that aircraft, but they may be able to buy that $75 million asset for a significantly different price in 6 months, right? So there are going to be some interesting times on that. On our side, as an aircraft management and maintenance company, we're a service provider, so the impacts are less lengthy for us. We deal with, in our contracts, you'll have things about typhoons, you'll have things about volcanic eruptions, very short-term things. So we will look now and say, okay, I guess we have to include some things on pandemics. What we have done, and our customers have been very good on, as they have been with our competition, where we will fly into certain areas and we won't fly into certain areas. And our rationale behind that is, if it's not safe for our crew, it's not safe for the person sitting in the back of the bus, right? And so we haven't had any arguments from any of our clientele saying, we must go over here. Well, we're saying, no, it's not safe, and everyone puts safety first. So it's been worked very well for us. The other thing, you tie into the force majeure clauses, you also then take a look at insurance. One of the options now that everyone's looking at, when they're not flying, they're not going to fly for 2 or 3 months. Let's park our aircraft. And so we'll go to our clientele and we'll say, well, maybe you only need ground risk insurance now. And you get your premiums reduced by anywhere from 50 to 70% because you're not flying. That's an added benefit to the customer. The insurance companies are gaining as well, even though the premiums are going down, but the risks are going down as well. So there's things that you have to look at now in a pandemic that you never had to look at previously.
Big picture, and this was covered in one of those late night webinars that I struggled to remain awake for. It's a lot of coffee. Everyone has them on U.S. time, so I have to stay up past my bedtime a little bit. We know nobody knows when this crisis is going to end. This is not a financial crisis, although it's turning into one. It's a medical crisis, and there's no vaccine now. That's going to be 12 months, 18 months out. The experts are telling us. So we're looking at a recession, and the people in the webinar last night were talking about different things. Could Boeing use this as a way to get out of its Embraer deal with some of and Embraer makes business jets, and they were talking about Textron has problems. Bombardier, might be having some problems. Give us an idea how you see the business jet or the charter travel industry, let's say 12 months from now, 18 months from now, we see an end to the virus. People start flying again. Nations start opening the borders again. Will business aviation bounce back faster than commercial, do you think? And will it be international flights? Will it be domestic? I mean, most business aviation flights in Asia, I think, are international flights in nature, except perhaps in some place like China or Australia. But will business aviation bounce back more quickly?
Yeah, my personal opinion is it will. One is just in terms of the sheer volume. When the commercial airlines will start coming back, they'll come back a bit slowly, and they will do the major routes. They'll do the major city pairings that they've always done. Could it be London, Beijing? It could be Singapore to Munich. But one of the benefits of a corporate and a business jet is they can go to the small airfields. They can go point to point. That's why the high net worths. That's why the corporations buy these assets, is so that they can not have to go stop. So that will come up quickly. The issue that we will all be facing is every country will open up differently. They'll have different rules and regulations. The one good thing about business aviation is most management companies, most independents, it's a turnkey operation where you have specific individuals that can manage things very quickly, and you can turn on a dime, so you can get the permits very quickly. You can know where you can get in. Whereas on the commercial side, there's a lot more planning that has to go into it. So I would see the business aviation actually picking up quite a bit quicker. You will see companies that before would be flying commercial now thinking twice because of the safety issues and the health issues, and combining people onto flights and doing more business that way. So I would see the pickup will be quicker, and I would actually see that we'll actually see significantly more flying, not only because of the pent-up demand, because business is there and it's an international business, and these corporations are all over the world and need to fly to places, but because there's been such a stagnation of the business, they're going to be coming out with basically arms of flying.
You alluded to this earlier about catching up on MRO, and I'm going to combine a couple of questions here.
Okay.
What exactly happens when a business jet is grounded? What kind of work has to be done to preserve the engines and the other hardware? Do they drain all the fluids? Do they leave them in? Do they seal them off somehow? How is it different from commercial jets? And you mentioned your big MRO base that you're building in the Philippines. Give us an idea about the MRO and also kind of what the nuts and bolts of what goes into grounding a business jet for an extended period.
So there's the good news is a plane is a plane. There's commercial aircraft, there's business aircraft, but they both do the same thing. They fly. Every OEM tends to have in their maintenance manual the set procedures for putting a plane on the ground. What do you have to do at 7 days? What do you have to do at 15 days? What do you have to do at 30 days? So it is pretty standard in the industry. It's all about protection. We have some unique things that we have to face in Asia, whereas you don't have to face if you're parking an aircraft in Tucson, Arizona in a dry desert. Corrosion is one of the biggest issues that we face in Asia. So there is some corrosion protection that we'll do. We'll do some additional cleaning. We'll do engine runs after 7 days. We'll do gear swings after 30 days. We will make sure that all the fluid levels are topped up. You will always put the power on. You'll go into the interior. One of the concerns that you have when you park a plane is where you're parking your plane. If you're in certain areas, is there a rodent issue, right? And you get one rat to run through your aircraft. That's a couple $1 million damage. So how do you protect that? You cover the pitot tubes. You make sure that the engines are covered. You will protect the leading edges. So it really is the same way as I would say if you have your nice classic car sitting in your garage, how will you take care of that? All the OEMs have set patterns that they want us to perform. We try to do a bit above and beyond, and some of that is the special cleaning that we do. You want to make sure that the interior is good. You want to make sure there's no mold. Right? You do an interior. Some of these planes have a $12 million living room, and that's the last thing you need to do is to get some mold and mildew inside. But what I will tell you is the companies that you're seeing here and in the U.S. and Europe, they're all very professional. They'll maintain the asset value because that's the other thing you need to do. You need to maintain the asset value. And one of the unfortunate things is when planes don't fly, they tend to break. So you have to go through all the proper checks at the 7-day, the 10-day, the 15-day.
Talking about checks, private pilots, if they're not flying for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or however long, what do they have to do? Are there special checks that they've got to go through to maintain their certifications?
Yes, there are, and all of us are facing that now, and it's all the different regulatory officials that you're dealing with, and depends if you're flying, if it's a Hong Kong registered aircraft, an FAA, EASA, etc. So, an example I'll give you is both the FAA and the EASA have extended the license renewal requirements by 3 months. We're working with Hong Kong CAD closely to see how long could we extend that. People that haven't been flying for the past 60 days, what we're planning to do is just do a local currency flights in the area as well. It is a big issue because the currency needs to be kept up, and most of the aviation authorities are pretty on the ball on that and are working with all of us. We in turn are working with whether it's the CAEs, the flight safeties of the world to make sure that can we get in and do simulator training as well. So that's very important.
Is there going to be, as fast as business aviation may come back, is there going to be a surplus of pilots in the near-term future in the next, say, 2 to 3 years?
My gut will tell me yes, and definitely more so on the commercial side, because if you see you see the number of airlines that are filing, Chapter 11 now that are going under, the number of pilots that are being put on furlough. How quickly will those aircraft come back on the commercial side? Business aviation, I would say, is a bit tighter in terms of the number of aircraft, the different ratings that the pilots have. So on the business side, I will see a bit of a downturn, I think, but nowhere near as what we're going to see in the commercial side.
Okay. This is a very interesting question for me because it goes to the heart. At every business aviation conference I've ever been to, everybody talks about that the industry has an image problem, that it's for the rich and famous, the Hollywood celebrity, et cetera, and they're trying to overcome that. If you want to call it a negative image, it's fine. Everyone else on the other side tries to present business aviation as, hey, it's a corporate tool. I've got a CEO and his top team that can be in 5 cities in one day closing a deal or negotiating a deal, and then they can be home for dinner with the wife and kids, or if it's a female CEO, the husband and kids. I had to get that in or my wife will kill me.
Yeah, no.
ASBA, the main association representing business aviation, which happens to be based in Hong Kong, says it's working to send governments information for relief for the industry in terms of tax breaks, supports for job retention. And again, the webinar I talked to last night said that they were talking about this, that the business aviation might have a hard time getting government support just because of that image that the general public has. What do you see happening in terms of, do you see governments in various locations offering the industry any kind of tax relief or any kind of support?
Yeah, so I can talk specifically. I know within Hong Kong, the government has reached out, and there are funds that are available for aviation companies, including the corporate moving companies. I would suggest on our end as Metrojet and working, for Sir Michael Kaduri and the family, we've been self-sufficient all the way through, and we pride ourselves on taking care of our people ourselves. We pride ourselves that we're not laying off people. We pride ourselves on taking care of and standing up on our own legs, and that's something that we're doing. And the government may be offering some funding, and I think that's good for a lot of the smaller corporations. But to your point, if you're taking a look at the billionaires of the world asking for handouts for 5% or 10%, I'll let every individual decide what's good for them. But I know the approach that we're going to be taking in this. What our approach has been right from day one is when we order 20,000 masks, the first thing that we do on the phone is we go to our partners, our families, our competition, saying, "Do you need something?" Right? There's also a lot of the corporations that are offering flights for the needy. If you have somebody that's sick, so there's the humanitarian flights to bring people home. So there still is a fair amount of attitude by the high net worth individuals on how do we help. So I would suggest, for the most part, people in our industry are very cognizant of what's going on in the world and who really needs the money and who doesn't need the money.
Let's talk about, and I just got a couple of more questions. I know your time is valuable and I don't want to take too much of it. Do you see companies like NetJets, the Fractional memberships, are they making deals? How are they holding up, and what are they trying to do to make sure they don't lose membership?
Yeah, well, if I take a look more in the U.S. market, I'll look at some of the fractionals. I think they're hurting quite a bit right now. Some have gone under. The bigger guys like the VistaJets, the Qatar executives, what they're trying to do is they do their single legs and they try to find a way, what can we possibly do to help on a back leg. And if you look at Thomas Flores from VistaJet, you look at what the Qatar executive people have been doing and offering is at a very discounted rate to cover the cost of the fuel. We can fill in the back storage and into our seats. We can bring in masks, sanitizer, incubators, or whatever. I won't say that they're struggling, but what they're trying to do is to optimize their one legs to say, how do we at least cover our costs? They're all going to be having to tighten their belts right now, and you'll see a lot less flights going out. But they are reaching out to companies like ourselves and other companies to say, how can we help you? And I think long term, that's the right way to look at things.
You obviously came into the office today, so you're in a coat and tie, and we're having and we're having this video online meeting, which and again everybody's doing webinars, everybody's doing Skype chats or Zoom, depending on how the security is set up on Zoom. I don't want to knock them too much, but they do need to work on their security.
Their security a bit, yeah.
Yeah, things like that. You're never going to sell $100 million private jet to a corporation or a person, a high net worth individual. You're never going to sell them a jet online. They're not going to there's never going to be an Amazon for private jets. So you're still going to need that face to face. So this will face to face meetings and having the customer come in to look at the veneer on the tables that are going to go into the aircraft. That's going to continue when things open up, right?
It has to, and if not only on the new market, but on the pre-owned. So if you're going to buy a pre-owned, you're going to want a pre-purchase inspection. You are going to deregister an aircraft, and you're going to register it to a different country registration. You need to have the physical contact to be able to do that. You need to be able to have an inspection on your airplane. So there's going to be a fair amount of pent-up demand that's going to be moving in right now that a lot of companies have to get prepared for. So I'm quite sure we're going to be seeing a number of whitetails sitting on the ramp and a lot of deals just waiting until somebody can fly in, until it's safe to fly in. So there is a wall that we're going to be moving towards. And when that wall is there, I think there will be quite a big spike in the business. It's just how is everyone getting prepared for that spike? And that goes from the lawyers, that goes from the interior people, that goes to the engine manufacturers to provide their corporate care programs, right? So there will be a lot of pent-up demand on the back end where you will have to have the face-to-face dealings.
Gary, I always like to end these interviews. Give us a bright spot that you're looking at. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you'd like to add? What's a bright spot for the industry?
Okay, well, the bright spot of the industry is we're really going through what we'll call as an event. It's not going to be status quo, and things improve. And if you take a look around how people are dealing with business now, we're finding that we're dealing with business like this, so we're going to find ways that we can probably do things quicker, more effectively. We're finding ways now in terms of ideas on when you see 100 planes parked on a ramp where we wouldn't have thought of ever seeing that. What can we do differently? So there's a lot of out-of-the-box thinking going through. There's a lot of collaboration going on between people that used to be very hard competitors to say, how do we help you? How will you help us? So I think what you're going to do, you will see some more mergers. You're going to see some takeovers, but you're also going to see some alliances setting up that'll, at the end, will benefit all of the OEMs because there'll be a stronger support network for them, and it'll benefit all of the customers because, the strong ones will be surviving and be able to provide a better service going forward.
Gary Dolski, CEO, Metrojet in Hong Kong. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, all the best. Thank you very much. Had a great time, Matt. Cheers.